Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. I wanted to speak today on some pro tips for navigating this complex world that we live in. And I'll start with the first one, being showing up. Something that, pretty simple as it sounds, is not always so easy, as there are always patterns and behaviors of avoidance, isolating, and hiding that can come through for us. And from what I have seen, usually engenders a not very healthy process from those behaviors of isolating, avoiding, or hiding from the world, from the complexity of world challenges, problems, issues, from the daily difficulties potentially of managing life, yours and maybe loved ones. So the first one absolutely is showing up. And showing up is what it sounds like. You show up, you're present, you carve out that time, whatever it is that your commitment had you make for that day, that moment. And showing up is 80% of the piece in bringing about all the permutations of what's possible from showing up. The other 20% happens through interactions or whatever is said, not said, and so forth. The next one is building a structure in your life. And of course, we think of maybe structures of buildings, homes, anything that has kind of a structural format. And we consider how things, people, places, things are utilizing that structure to facilitate their life. So, two examples of structures. One could be a meditation center, meditation hall. It is a structure that can be physical or remote, where it is supporting the practices of meditation, mindfulness in one's life. And a different structure could be a martial arts dojo, where it is built in such a way with the rules and the etiquette, class schedules and times, so that we can, as an individual, as a student, come into that space, that structure, and utilize that space to be able to support one's own practice. In martial arts, in refining the body with techniques, self-defense mechanisms, and so forth. So there's various structures in one's life that you're probably already implementing and using in your life. And what I want you to pay attention to is, what is a specific structure you are utilizing for your inner growth, inner self-development? Because this is one that you can build and formulate yourself, which is one of the beautiful things. That you have this capacity to architect and design a structure that is supportive of your life and your practice. The third pro tip of navigating a complex world is balance. And this balance piece comes in the form of doing and or not doing whatever is right and aligned for you. And an inside tip around having balance in one's life is gaining clarity for what is right for you, what doesn't work for you. Maybe for my specific structure, what is right for me, what feels good to my body is swimming or hiking or walking or martial arts. Those are things I enjoy. Scuba diving. And things that don't feel right to me is potentially bodybuilding, lifting a lot of weights, going to the gym, just to lift weights. That doesn't necessarily feel good for my body, feel in balance, in alignment with what it is that I have structurally created in my life. Because for me, in my life, in the structure I'm architecting, building out, is about mobility, adaptability, flexibility, fluidity. Right? There's so many words. But for me, what aligns in that place for structure through balance are the things that I choose to commit my time, life, and mind to that feel right for me. So I share that as a template for you to consider what is right for you in that place and space of balance. And clarity comes through utilizing all the input as feedback, not as a system overwhelm of data analysis. It's a tool of feedback of like, oh, I did that. I tried something new. How did that feel afterwards? Check in. That didn't feel so great. Oh, I went to go hang out with this group of individuals. It seemed really fun. And oh my gosh, I had more fun than I anticipated. Right? So those are all feedback input that helps us to gain greater clarity for what is aligned and in balance with our systems. The fourth pro tip, we have 5 total today, is disconnecting. And this disconnecting is not hiding, avoiding, skirting any of our responsibilities. This disconnecting I'm speaking about is when we intentionally cultivate time and space to give ourselves breathing room. That can be called a retreat. That can be called your own personal me time, self-care time, whatever label that you want to put on it. But the essence of that disconnection, it is with intention that you retreat for a period of time to be able to be with you, assimilate you and whatever has been happening in your life, all the growth and the changes, so that we can come back into the world better, stronger, more resilient, with greater insight and awareness. And that essentially leads to that 5th tip, which is reconnection. So after we disconnect, we reconnect. And we start the whole cycle again. And that cycle is a refinement process. And when we think of disconnecting, it doesn't have to be a grand trip. It doesn't have to be a lengthy amount of time. Sabbatical or semi-sabbatical could be considered a really great disconnect. But it can be broken down into smaller ways to disconnect in healthy, productive ways without having to be so grand. It can be very simple, like an intentional walk outside in nature. It can be an intentional trip that you're driving a little bit extra miles than you normally would around your general home neighborhood, to do an activity by yourself, usually, right? And or with another trusted friend, to have the space to disconnect from technology and or any other input systems that is always bombarding us with a lot of information. It can be the intention of doing something in your own home for that day and turning your phone on do not disturb, keeping it silent, and letting people know that care about you that you're going to take a day to yourself and you won't be answering any emails, phone calls, voicemails. So this disconnect piece can be very small and or it can be very large as how you want to curate it for where you're at in your life, the stages, the phases, and whatever it is you're needing to address. But I'm sharing with you that disconnect piece can absolutely be done when we have an intention set forth in that, we commit to that, and then we follow through. And when we do, it is so powerful. It is incredibly rejuvenating. I can testify to that. And sometimes it's so blissful and enjoyable when we do a proper, healthy disconnect that there's almost a subtle little piece of ourselves like, oh, do I really have to go back, reconnect into the world? Right? A subtle little piece. And that's great because that means that you disconnected really well and you gave yourself what you needed. But don't miss that last final piece about reconnection, because if we disconnect and we don't want to go back and then we follow through with not going back, that then leads to avoidance and hiding and isolating and engenders maladaptive behaviors that does not help us navigate a complex world. It eventually leads to so much overwhelm. The dam, that's trying to hold back the flow overflows over in the dam. It potentially might break the dam, and it makes a really big mess in one's life. So this reconnection piece, this final piece before we begin again, if you will, is done in such a way that's strategic. And that strategic piece goes back into referencing our structure in what I spoke about earlier. Usually when we have disconnected in a very healthy, aligned way for our well-being, reconnecting is an opportunity for us to restructure certain things in our life that maybe wasn't working as well. You give yourself this opportunity to upgrade your system, your program. And that's the beautiful cycle around this disconnection and reconnection into the complex, incredibly speedy world of information and technology that we live in, and interconnectedness. So I leave that with you today, those pro tips around navigating this world that we live in, these times that we are navigating. And they include showing up, having the proper structure for your life, balance, which entails clarity and alignment for what is right for you, disconnecting, having that self-care retreat time, personal time, to then reconnect and come back into the world with a newer, upgraded version of you. And I found that when I go through these steps, they really, truly help to refine my life, and refine my life in a way that specifically helps me to feel and experience more joy, more happiness, more clarity in my life. So I wanted to share that with you today. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you like to hear more, please join me at one of the classes, workshops, which you can find more information on at mayfrogtherapy.com. Have a wonderful, beautiful day. I wish you well.